Hello everyone, I'm Art Fennell. Thanks for being here. Well, it's football season. Did your favorite team win on Sunday? You know, we spend a lot of our Sundays with friends and family, gathered in front of the TV, eating our favorite football food and drinks, rooting our favorite teams on. Football in America, make no mistake about this, it is a real big deal. And you'd better believe the NFL knows that. The National Football League is implementing some strict guidelines to control its own message, its own destiny, and its own profits. Now, what you may not know is that the NFL puts very tight restrictions on us media outlets dictating what you can and cannot see. For example, game highlights. We'd like to show you some to go along with this story, but we can't. In fact, all we can show you is stuff like this. This is practice video, the New England Patriots in this case. The real footage, meantime, may only be used up to 24 hours following a game on certain types of programs, and this isn't one of them, and only a few mere seconds are permitted to air. Now, if you want to see more than that, well, you've got to pay big money for it, and you've got to go directly through the NFL to do that. That's a big change from the way things used to be. Now, again, this is all about money. The organization takes in more than $6 billion a year, and that's all fine. But should the pursuance of profit mean that the NFL dictate what you can and can't see? We want to talk about this, and I've got two guys that know all about it, and these guys you know very well. And they're directly impacted by this. CN8's own Greg Murphy and John Carchidi, host of Out of Bounds right here on this network. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hey, Art.
Good, Arthur. How are you?
Murph, let me start with you. The NFL is the big dog in this case. Are they out of bounds in the way that they're restricting what the viewers and the fans can see of their favorite teams?
Well, from our standpoint, absolutely. You know, as journalists, as broadcasters, anything we'd like to. Right at the beginning, Arthur, it's all about the money, and the NFL, they have the hammer in this one, and they're within their rights to do it because, quite frankly, the NFL is just a large private organization, 30 teams, 32 teams that get together and play football against each other each and every week. The fact that there's so much money involved and so much money coming into the NFL, they want to protect that, and they're well within their rights to do that, but it does make it difficult for guys like John and myself to do our job and to show the fans at home exactly what we're talking about.
Because like right now, John, and I'm coming to you, we're watching a practice video. You know, this is when, you know, the guys are out in July and August doing their two-a-days and that kind of stuff. But people really want to see highlights from the game. They want to know how the Redskins did against the Giants yesterday, or they want to know how the Eagles did and see some of those highlights of the Patriots. And just how frustrating is that from your standpoint?
Well, it can be frustrating, but at least, you know, Murph and I can still do our jobs. We'll be able to have a show tonight. We won't be able to show any game highlights from yesterday because we'll be going up against Monday Night Football, and that's one of the rules, one of the restrictions. But it gets a little bit more difficult for guys who are videographers. They're restricting the number of videographers who can shoot these games, so they can't actually do their craft. At least Murph and I can still provide our craft, and it comes down to we might have to be a little bit more creative about it, but, you know, Murph and I are up for the challenge.
Well, let's talk about that, too, because viewers may not know this, but particularly from news organizations, typically you were allowed to have your camera people down on the field so that they could shoot their own highlights and then put that on the news at night and highlights and special shows like Out of Bounds and others. But then was it last year that they said, hey, we don't even want news photographers on the field anymore?
Yeah, it was last year, Arthur. In 2006, they made a blanket rule, which it kind of came out of nowhere, just weeks before the season, saying that no cameramen from local TV stations would be allowed down on the field to shoot the NFL games. We've been doing that for as long as I've been in this business, and certainly well before that as well. And it really kind of came out of nowhere. I do think they have changed the rule now. In 2007, now they allow a limited number of local broadcast cameras down on the field. I think the number is 10 combined for both teams, and they kind of do it as a pool feed. But last year, in 2006, the only way to get NFL footage was off of the broadcast itself. And as John can speak to, you know, that really limits, if you're trying to do a particular story on a particular person, it limits the kind of video that you can get about that person, and it does make things more difficult.
John, the NFL now has its own network, and a lot of the big-time networks are starting to go this way. The NFL network, they want us to watch the NFL Network. And not only that, they want us to get what you are able to see through them, which means you got to pay them to get that. What are your thoughts on the NFL Network taking basically all of this video and making themselves the clearinghouse in which they distribute it?
I don't think it's at that point quite yet. All right, I mean, the NFL, they can easily be described as a monster, as the giant monopoly, but I don't think they've been so unfair. And I think it was Dick Ebersol from NBC who's actually one of the people who stands to lose from the NFL Network.
How so? How did they lose?
Well, I think because they are one of the competitors. They want you to watch. They want you to come to them, not only on television but also on the web for NFL content. But it was Ebersol who says, you know what, it's just good business. We might be doing the exact same thing. If it's our product, we want you to come to us for it.
Yeah, and Dick Ebersol, as John talking about, the president of NBC, they do this. They do this during the Olympics. You're not allowed to show Olympic footage during a regular broadcast if you want to while the Olympics are happening, and you can't go back and show Olympic footage. If I wanted to do a piece on Mary Lou Retton, and I cannot go back unless I pay for the rights to show her back in 1980 doing her thing. So NBC does the same thing. The NCAA on CBS, they do the same thing. These networks pay a lot of money in order to protect their rights, and believe me, they protect their rights. It just makes it difficult for the competitors to kind of get in there.
Well, guys, I've got some numbers here I want to share them with you in terms of influence in sports and the most powerful sports. We're going to put this graphic up as I say this. Football is by far the powerhouse here with 29% of the vote there. Baseball, 14%. College football, 13%. This is in terms of popularity on the as far as the American viewing public is concerned. The NFL knows that they're clearly the 800-pound gorilla in the room, don't they?
Oh, yeah. They absolutely know that. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And we know it. And John could tell you, on any given night on Out of Bounds, as we sit in our production meetings getting ready for the show and talking about the top stories of the day and what we're going to talk about and what we think our viewers will be most interested in, football almost always dominates. And if there's a question between the two, you always go towards football because it is that kind of sport. It's year-round nowadays. We talk about mini camps. We talk about free agency. We talk about trades. We talk about the NFL draft. So it's constant, and the NFL knows that. And another thing, Arthur, that they're doing with the broadcasting rights, and John touched on this a little bit earlier, is they're now really limiting the access to the websites and video on websites that are not owned by the NFL because they're trying to drive you towards the NFL's websites and the team's websites. So they're controlling it in another way, and as the internet continues to be a huge source of news gathering, that is also a very big deal.
Yeah, and I don't know what it was all about now that they wanted the camera people that are on the field to wear these vests that have advertising on them so that they're promoting someone else's message. What's that all about?
Well, it was a good case of actually the media actually pushing back a little bit to the NFL. The NFL wanted the still photographers to wear these vests, which they've always been required to wear to identify themselves, but they wanted a Reebok logo and a Canon logo, so they would actually become kind of walking billboards. The Chicago Sun-Times and other big newspapers said we're not going to do it, and have actually started to cover those logos with tape, and the NFL is saying, okay, we'll let you get away with that.
Yeah, it's always something. Guys, we could talk about this for a very long time. I know that you guys tackle it each and every night on your shows, and we appreciate it. I'm a big sports fan, and I know we have a lot of viewers out there who are big sports fans as well, and we'll be watching as you guys advance this conversation. Hey, thanks. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Art.
Okay, and I'll see you on TV. By the way, you got to watch these guys. You got to catch Murph every weeknight at 7 p.m. right here on this network. He's the host of Out of Bounds. And then you got to come back and watch John and Phil as they host Out of Bounds weeknights at 11, right immediately after Art Fennell Reports. And they do a very, very fine job. We appreciate it.